At my son's wedding, the bride shocked me with a shocking demand that changed everything forever. The laughter and joyful chatter filled the air, but underneath the festive facade, my heart raced. As I scanned the lively room, I couldn't shake the wave of unease crashing over me. Here, in front of family and friends, I stood on the cusp of an emotional precipice. My son Jacob was marrying Maria, a remarkable woman who believed in the power of dreams, yet her next words threatened to shatter the very world I had built. "Can we talk about the garage?" she announced, her voice cutting through joyous laughter. My breath hitched, and I felt the blood drain from my face. What could she possibly want to discuss about that dusty old building? Memories flooded my mind, the late nights spent fixing cars, the laughter shared between father and son, and the weight of generations that leaned upon those weathered walls. It was more than just a garage, it was family legacy, a cornerstone of my life. As questions spiraled through my thoughts, Maria began outlining her vision, transforming the garage into a co-working space, a beacon of opportunity in our small town. The words echoing in my mind clashed violently with my reality. My loyalty to that building, the sweat and tears poured into its foundation, felt like a tug-of-war against the hopes Maria presented. Could I lose my son's happiness over a remnant of my past? Panic clenched my stomach. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the tension rising, I searched for Jacob's reassuring face, hoping he'd understand my side, hoping he'd agree that our history was crucial. But he was lost in the moment with Maria, his excitement overshadowing my inner turmoil. The whispers around us grew, revealing rifts born from family pressure, misunderstanding. What did it mean to leave a legacy? Was it the concrete building that mattered or the spirit of resilience I had instilled in my family? As Maria leaned closer, urgency radiating from her, she revealed a deadline, a ticking clock that threatened to dissolve everything we'd built if I didn't agree soon. Locked in a stare with Maria, I felt the weight of the past and the burden of the future pressing down on me. Each second stretched painfully as I prepared to speak, grappling with emotions that threatened to drown me. Would I be a guardian of my family's heritage or a supporter of Jacob's future? The layers wrapped around my chest tightened like a vice, leaving me breathless as the atmosphere thickened. As the crowd hung on our standoff, my heart raced. The wedding that promised joy now loomed over me like a dark cloud of uncertainty. How would I decide? What lay ahead threatened the very fabric of our family. The moment hung in the air, thick with tension, as I stood in front of Maria, caught between the walls of the garage that encapsulated my past and the future that lay tantalizingly within reach. The colorful decorations and jubilant atmosphere around us faded into a blur, merging with the deeper conflict twisting inside me. As I searched for the right words, dread settled heavily in my gut. My years spent nurturing that space, pouring my heart into wrenching bolts and painting walls, felt like they might slip through my fingers if I didn't act. Yet, Maria's eagerness beckoned with possibilities that excited many: my son, his friends, and the community craving innovation. Could I really stand in the way of such potential? "Dad, you've built something special there," Jacob said, piercing the fog that clouded my thoughts. But there's a chance for something more, to inspire growth for new generations. I looked at him then, truly looked, and saw his earnestness, the same determination I had instilled in him. My heart softened, but the architectural skeleton of the garage creaked ominously around me, burdened by nostalgia. The external clamor faded, and a quieter part of my mind began to reveal the weight of my attachment. What if holding on to this legacy meant anchoring Jacob to the past? What if, in doing so, I extinguished his vision for the future? I wondered how my fear had controlled me for so long, shackling my perspective. What kind of father would prioritize bricks over dreams? Maria's voice broke through again. Imagine a hub for creativity right here, where others can share ideas and innovations. Each word was a brushstroke painting a vivid picture that whispered to my practical side, whispering about what could be possibilities I had never conceived amidst my rigid clinging to tradition. what was I afraid of losing? The garage, with its rusty tools and scattered memories, or my son's happiness and the potential I could help him unlock? My internal battle raged on as I considered the potential partnerships, the future entrepreneurs who could share their journeys within that reclaimed space. Could the garage become a monument not of my past, but of his future? In the midst of my chaos, Maria leaned in closer. We discussed grants for this transformation. We could even keep part of the garage as a nod to its history. A part of me resisted still, yearning for the permanence my heart felt in that building's walls. But was it time to pivot? My identity felt wrapped around that space like ivy, creeping and entangling, but could it also shift and evolve? Taking a deep breath, I fought to steady myself. This isn't just a decision about a building, I said slowly, feeling the stirrings of resolution. It's about what kind of father I want to be. Do I cling to the past or empower you to forge ahead? Jacob's eyes widened as he absorbed my words, hope flickering within them. I realized that perhaps it was time to reconstruct the foundations of my own legacy, not just for me, but for my son and for those dreams yet untapped. The pressure in the room began to feel lighter, and an ember of courage ignited within me. As the enormity of this potential transformation loomed before me, I understood that I was poised on the brink of change, and with it came the frail tremors of vulnerability. What awaited on the other side of my decision? Would I find resilience within as I ventured into uncharted territories? A sudden tightening in my chest reminded me that the time was drawing near. The wedding wasn't merely a family celebration, it was a pivot point twisting toward an unknown destiny. Could I embrace the risk ahead? In that moment, as everyone around continued to revel in the festivities, I made my choice. But what I didn't yet know was the profound impact it would have on my identity, and the roots of connection I would either strengthen or sever. The familiar sensation of conflict lingered as I glanced toward the future, hesitant yet determined. The next phase awaited me, but it came with a nagging question: who would I become in the process? Of letting go? As I stepped away from the crowd, Maria's vision still echoing in my mind, I felt a strange dissonance, one foot firmly planted in the past, the other trembling over an abyss of uncertainty. The wedding was supposed to be a joyous occasion, yet the thoughts of my garage churned relentlessly. It wasn't merely a structure, it was a repository of who I was, tethering me to my aspirations and failures alike. What would be left of me if I let go? The brisk evening air wrapped around me like a cool blanket, invigorating yet grounding. I leaned against the vintage car I had refurbished, a project that had both consumed my time and honed my skills. I noticed the layers of dust settling softly on it, the imperfections that reminded me of the countless hours I had spent fine-tuning every detail. That was my sanctuary, and yet, it felt increasingly like chains binding me to my past. The laughter from inside the venue faded into the background as I grappled with my thoughts. It struck me that I had already taken steps to forge my identity around the garage. It had served as a monument to my hard work, but now it appeared to be morphing into a mausoleum that reflected my fears, the fear of taking risks, the fear of vulnerability. I had worked hard to cultivate my skills, yet somehow, I had forgotten that growth meant embracing change, not clinging to stone and steel. In that moment of clarity, I decided that I had to return inside. Yet, as I made my way back to the festivity, Jacob's small voice from earlier repeated in my head, a gentle reminder of my own dreams for him. What was I truly teaching him? Was it resilience and innovation, or simply a cycle of fear? I stepped back into the jubilant atmosphere, but my focus sharpened. Every giggle, every toast, felt heavier, almost weighty as it contrasted with my internal unrest. I searched for Jacob, but it was the bride, Elena, who caught my eye first. She stood apart from the others, her demeanor poised yet visibly apprehensive, as if she held an unspoken concern, calling forth whatever courage I had boiled over. I approached her. "Is everything all right?" I asked, noting the way her brows nodded. Unraveling the knot in my own heart, she took a breath, her eyes glistening. "I need to speak with you, sir. It's about the plans for the future." Her solemnity shifted the course of my heart. "It's important. I want to ensure that we're not just blending into expectations." A cascade of emotions flooded my mind. "What do you mean?" I asked, struggling to mask the urgency in my voice. Elena hesitated, the weight of her thoughts heavy between us. Jacob and I have been talking about the legacy we want to create, something more than just a routine life. We envision a space that symbolizes creativity and innovation, much like what your garage could become. My heart raced as if an arrow had struck straight through my resolve. Was this the moment where the universe unraveled before me, laying bare a path that would lead Jacob and me to embrace change instead of shunning it? Your garage, she continued slowly. It's so much more than just a building to us. It could be a launch pad. The implications of her words twisted within me, both a challenge and an invitation. Could it really be that the future I feared losing was, in fact, the very thing I now had the chance to help shape? Elena's steady gaze bore into mine as if she sensed my dilemma and was willing to forge ahead, despite my hesitance. Here, at my son's wedding, an event intended to symbolize new beginnings and futures unfolding, I was suddenly confronted with the responsibility of evolution that I realized in that instant that the time to face my fear had come. It hung like a thread, delicate yet strong, ready to be woven into an entirely new tapestry. The pressure built within me, threatening to spill over as I pondered my next move. Could I craft a new legacy while honoring the essence of the past? The enormity of that thought pressed against me like an anvil, a task laden with promise and peril. Perhaps it's time to redefine what legacy means to me, I murmured. Feeling the burgeoning resolve anchor in my chest. As the clamor of the reception rippled through the air, one question loomed larger than all else. Was I ready to transform not just my space, but myself in the process? Elena's gaze remained fixed upon me, her sincerity drawing out an unfamiliar well of determination. I felt the walls of my self-imposed constraints begin to shift. The nagging doubts that had coiled around my heart since Jacob first mentioned his aspirations seemed to loosen, giving room for something new, a sense of urgency to act. Can you see it? She pressed, her voice steady as she opened the door to the possibilities. A collaborative space, a workshop where creativity can flourish. Not just for you or Jacob, but for the community around us. Imagine the projects that could emerge. The idea settled in my mind like a seed, but it felt fragile, delicate. Could I really step into the unknown to allow my fears to transform into something beneficial for Jacob and the world? The vision of that attic-turned innovation hub, brimming with young minds sharing ideas and building prototypes, was captivating, but daunting. Another shadow of fear lurked behind it. What if I failed to provide the guidance they deserved? I've never thought of my garage that way, I finally admitted. It's always been a solitary refuge for my past, not a platform for collaboration. Elena nodded. And maybe that's where the real problem lies. You've been using it as a retreat, but what if you declared it a launch pad, like I said? It's never too late to reshape how you engage with the world. With each heartbeat, I became aware of a flicker of excitement beneath the layers of doubt. The thought of nurturing young talent and fostering creativity tugged at something deep within, a longing to connect, to build, to inspire. The weight of responsibility began to settle in as I inhaled deeply, measuring my words carefully. Do you really think we could create something impactful? Or are we just chasing a dream that's too grand for us? Her eyes sparkled with conviction. Every grand vision starts with a single step, doesn't it? Why not take yours with Jacob right beside you? Together, you could redefine what success means for both of you. Elena had struck a nerve. This was my chance not just to reshape my garage but my entire outlook on life. I thought of Jacob and the kind of legacy I wanted to establish for him. Would I rather show him the shadows of fear or the light of potential? The voices inside me began to collide, the cautious whisper of my past versus the bold, clamoring cries of a visionary future. With a newfound determination, I nodded slowly. We could start with a few weekends. I could invite some local kids, get them excited about tinkering and creating. But I need to make sure it's structured. I don't want chaos. Structure can drive creativity, she assured me. Imagine a place where every project becomes a learning experience, not just for them but for you as well. The opportunity for growth is limitless. Just as I began to embrace the idea, a wave of anxiety surged again, a fear of stepping into uncharted territory. What if I fail? What if it all collapses before it even begins? Failure is just another step to success. It's how you teach resilience, Elena said, her voice a balm to my worries. You're not just hitting go on an idea, you're embarking on a journey of evolution. You too will learn, adapt, and create something extraordinary. As the night unfolded around us, I realized my decision had evolved from one of trepidation to one loaded with purpose. The past had worn me down, but the prospect of that garage becoming a launch pad instead of a mausoleum ignited a fire within. All right, I breathed, the commitment settling into my bones. Let us do this. But as I turned to walk back into the celebration, a phrase lingered at the edge of my mind, a reminder of what was at stake. The echoes of every success I had achieved were now juxtaposed with the thrill of what awaited. What if the resistance I faced in this transition could mirror my greatest triumphs? Undoubtedly, the path wouldn't be without obstacles, but maybe, just maybe, this was my moment to unearth a deeper identity. The final question loomed in my thoughts: was I prepared to fully embrace the transformative process that lay ahead, or would I retreat into the comfort of the past as the world began to shift around me? The next morning, light streamed through my kitchen window, illuminating the abandoned coffee mug from the night before, a reminder of the weighty decisions set in motion. I stared at it, contemplating the steady rhythm of my heartbeat, the anticipation, anxiety, and the remnants of doubt swirling inside me. The dawn unfurled, and with it, a promise to myself to engage with this new chapter in my life. Jacob emerged from his room, bleary-eyed but curious, ready to devour breakfast. "Dad, what's the plan for today?" His question brought a rush of warmth. I hesitated, feeling the enormity of the responsibility resting squarely on my shoulders. "I think I'm going to start getting things ready for that workshop we talked about." His eyes widened. "Really? Wasn't that just an idea?" "Ideas can become more than ideas," I said, trying to channel Elijah's conviction from last night. "But I need your help." "Are you in?" Jacob grinned, a spark igniting between us. "Of course. What should we do first?" We spent the day clearing out the garage, unearthing tools and forgotten projects, remnants of my past life. Each item breathed life into the space, transforming it from a tomb of isolation to a canvas teeming with possibility. The clutter became a metaphor. I was shedding years of hesitation, making way for something fresh and dynamic. As we sorted through the detritus, I could feel the changes within, slowly merging. I was now the architect of a space that would invite exploration, just like my childhood garage had once done for me. But with every step, I wrestled with the specter of doubt that hovered nearby. "Are we really doing this?" I asked aloud, unconsciously voicing my uncertainty. Jacob turned to me, his brow furrowed. "Of course. It'll be fun. You said it's supposed to be a place for kids to create, right?" "Right," I replied, my tone dipping with hesitation. "But what if the kids come and it doesn't work out? What if I can't engage them?" His answer was almost instantaneous. "You won't know until you try." His confidence struck a chord within me, resonating with the subconscious ambition that had long lain dormant. After a brief pause, I nodded. "Okay. We'll need to plan everything. How many kids can we handle? What supplies should we gather? What projects can we introduce?" The questions poured out like water from a broken dam, each one igniting a new thrill coupled with trepidation. By evening, with a blueprint sketched for our first weekend and a shopping list at hand, I felt an exhilarating sense of purpose settle over me. But as night descended and darkness enfolded the house, I found it difficult to shake off the residual fear clawing at the edges of my resolve. What if the effort unraveled? The lingering voice of my past life reminded me of previous failed ventures. Would this new endeavor succumb to the same fate? With urgency, I turned to my notebook, jotting down thoughts that alluded to self-doubt, prioritizing transparency with Jacob. I want to create something meaningful, yet the fear of disappointing you weighs heavily on me. Yet as I penned my fears, something moved within me, the recognition of vulnerability paving the way toward strength. I was not only setting a foundation for others but a new narrative for myself. I allowed myself to dream bigger. What if this workshop became a catalyst for my own self-discovery as well? The journey stretched ahead like an uncharted road. How I faced the challenges, I realized, would shape not just Jacob's future but my own. Would I inspire him or drown in the murk of my uncertainties? As I closed the notebook and turned off the light, a thought nagged at me, a question of accountability. Was I ready for the scrutiny that would come from others? The circles of connection I intended to build could facilitate growth, but could I meet the expectations of the community, and most crucially, my own? Tomorrow would require more than a mere plan. It would test the very core of my courage. And beneath that resolve, a darker shadow whispered, should I fail again, would I retreat altogether this time? The clock ticked on, reminding me that moments are fleeting. How far I'd come from yesterday was undeniable, but in my heart, I knew the most significant test lay ahead. I drew a deep breath, preparing for the battle against the doubts that plagued me. Would I stand firm in this transition, or would the past's grip tighten once more? The sun peered through my window, heralding a day filled with potential. I woke with a relentless sense of urgency, wrestling with the shadows of doubt that crept along the edges of my thoughts. The mixture of excitement and anxiety pulsed through my veins, nudging me towards action. This workshop wasn't merely a project, it was a manifestation of my desire for growth, not just for my son, but for myself. As I shuffled through my morning routine, I replayed yesterday's events in my mind. Jacob's enthusiasm, how our simple act of cleaning the garage had ignited a spark in both of us. But where did that leave me as a leader? I needed to transition from an excited dad to an inspiring figure, competent and confident in my vision. Flashes of uncertainty loomed, threatening to cloud my renewed sense of purpose. With breakfast barely consumed and my mind racing ahead, I approached Jacob. Hey, buddy, how about we formulate a timeline today? We should establish clear goals for the workshop, I suggested, my voice steady yet my insides swirled like a tempest. Can we set a theme? Jacob chirped, the energy in his words lifting my spirits momentarily. Absolutely, a theme would help. My pulse quickened, and for the first time, I felt that thrill of potential overcoming my sense of dread. The thought of engaging kids in creative projects invoked memories of my childhood when possibilities felt endless. We spent hours brainstorming ideas, arts and crafts, building models, even introducing elements of technology through coding games. Slowly, we pieced together a plan that took shape, one that promised to awaken a world of creativity for the children who wandered through our space. Yet, as we dove deeper, I felt the weight of my past ventures press against my chest. My mind flickered back to when I had pledged to run a local initiative ambitiously grand yet ultimately scrapped due to lack of interest. The thought gnawed at me. What if history repeated itself? Dad, Jacob's voice pulled me back to the present. What if we do a project about building our own adventures? Like, it could be about mapping out dreams. His suggestion flickered hope, simultaneously sparking an urgency buried deep within me. That's brilliant. But Jacob, what if kids don't connect with the idea? He shrugged, youthful confidence radiating from him. What matters is that we're trying. It doesn't need to be perfect. His words struck a chord, illuminating a well-hidden truth. The essence of growth isn't devoid of failure, it's ingrained in the attempt itself. However, my mind wrestled with the reality that if I faltered, the impact on Jacob could stretch far beyond disappointment. What if my insecurities influenced him? The day wore on with preparations, my mind filled with timelines, potential setbacks, and intermittent flashes of brilliance. Yet, as evening crept in, the gnawing self-doubt returned. I paced the floor, pondering the magnitude of what lay before us. Can we really do this? I murmured to myself as I gathered materials. The memories of my prior failures loomed ominously, a storm cloud above my head, asserting its presence at the most conflicted moments. I have to embrace this challenge, I repeated inwardly. But embracing it meant confronting my deepest fears, the idea that I could fail, again. What if I became paralyzed by my inadequacies, a role model who couldn't rise above his own demons? As I stood at the threshold of this new venture with a plan starting to take form, I knew I needed to confront these insecurities head-on. The discussion yesterday with Jacob wasn't merely logistical, it had laid bare fears I had hidden behind closed doors. Tomorrow would require more than mere execution. It beckoned a challenge to my identity as a mentor, a father, not just to launch a workshop, but to demonstrate resilience in the face of judgment. And near the core of all of this, a new voice emerged within me, demanding authenticity. The stakes had risen dramatically, disappointment would reverberate through our family dynamic, an atomic echo were this to fail. But as the Resolve strengthened, I began contemplating not just making a plan but ensuring it resonated with who I truly was. What if in this endeavor, I could uncover layers within myself yet undiscovered? The prospect was as intimidating as it was exhilarating, and I resolved then to channel that energy into my approach. If I was to lead this workshop, I would do so with integrity, embracing the multitude of vulnerabilities that existed within me. With thoughts racing, a fresh determination taking root, I realized this was just the beginning. Confronting my past and revealing a more refined version of myself required courage, a confrontation perhaps long overdue. And as I closed my notepad, brilliant ideas swirling around, a nagging question remained. Could I strip away the expectations that accompanied all those years spent seeking validation, finally acknowledging the mentor within me waiting to emerge? Dawn arrived with a clarity that felt almost supernatural. I woke with a mixed sense of anticipation and dread. Overnight, the remnants of my insecurities began to settle, and I could sense, almost physically, the weight of the day ahead. Today was more than just about organizing a workshop. It was about stepping into a version of myself that I had long kept hidden. That I arranged materials with care, each brush, each piece of colored paper symbolizing a transformation, a tangible representation of what I hoped to achieve. The universe might have been nudging me towards professional growth, but I was keenly aware that this moment would require me to be more than just proficient. I had to be authentic. Jacob joined me, full of energy, bouncing ideas for our project like a pinball. What if we create a dream wall where every kid can pin their dreams, and then we could help them build one? He suggested, his face bright and animated. That's genius, I exclaimed, his enthusiasm capturing mine. This spark of ingenuity reminded me of how important it was to create an environment that allowed for creativity without the constraints of preconceived limitations. As we worked together, I couldn't help but admire my son's fearless approach to challenges. Where I saw a risk, he perceived opportunity. I yearned to embody his spirit, to let go of the encumbering thoughts that shackled me to my past failures. In his innocence, I found a reminder that adventure often lay on the other side of fear. The clock slid forward, but time felt fluid as we transformed our space into a vibrant hub of creativity. I hung up the posters Jacob had drawn and arranged tables filled with supplies. Each item held the promise of innovation, a vehicle to channel the children's imaginations. But as I engaged with the materials, an unsettling thought flickered in my mind. What if our efforts fell flat? Doubt gnawed at the edges of my resolve. I recalled the disappointment that had scrambled my ambitions in the past, and for a moment, it almost paralyzed me. I leaned against a table, my heart pounding as memories of past failures flooded back, names and faces of those I disappointed in initiatives that didn't take off. I felt the all-too-familiar tightening grip of anxiety. "Hey, Dad, we're gonna be great," Jacob chimed in, as if he could sense the impending wave of my doubts. Just the reassurance I needed. I had to mirror his optimism. I was not just a father, but also a leader here, and I would not allow fear to dictate my actions. Embracing the moment, I decided to share my doubts with Jacob. "You know, I sometimes worry that what we create here won't resonate with the kids. What if they don't connect?" He paused, considering my words with serious deliberation. "Well, Dad, what if they do? You can't know until you try, right?" His simplicity struck me. He was right. Growth comes from the willingness to step into the unknown, despite the shadows lurking behind. With renewed determination guiding me, I resolved to emphasize the theme of dream building in our interactions. I would lead by example, demonstrating that vulnerability came hand in hand with courage. And if any hiccups arose, we would navigate them as a team. As the workshop kicked off, I felt the atmosphere change. Kids began arriving, their curiosity tangible. Little fingers rummaged through the supplies, laughter punctuating their eagerness. Each moment brought its own challenges and surprises, but as Jacob flitted about engaging them in discussion, my heart swelled with pride. Yet, beneath the excitement, I felt on the verge of a larger realization. This wasn't merely about guiding kids, it was about redefining my perception of myself. Every excited gleam in their eyes reflected back to me a shattering realization I had a responsibility to embody resilience, competence, and, ultimately, the belief in possibilities. As I glanced at Jacob, the corner of my lips lifted into a smile. I was moving toward an authentic self, the mentor I had always wanted to be. But as the workshop unfolded, I sensed a challenge creeping closer, a moment that would define my capabilities. Just when we seemed to find our rhythm, a parent arrived with a concerned expression, her eyes searching the room. "Can we talk?" she asked, tension palpable in the air. What lay ahead felt charged with uncertainty, and my instincts flared. The moment was about to shift. I knew, without a doubt, that I was on the precipice of something profound, an encounter that might challenge what I had just begun to piece together. The tension in the air felt thick, constricting my ability to breathe as I turned my attention to the parent standing before me. Her expression was tight, a fortress of worry built around the threshold of her lips. A nervous clench in my stomach quickly morphed into an eager curiosity. I had prepared to inspire kids, yet here I was, suddenly needing to navigate adult emotions and concerns. "Of course, what's on your mind?" I asked, attempting to adopt a calm demeanor despite the storm brewing internally. "They're coming to discuss something concerning," she began, her tone tinged with urgency. "My son has been saying he doesn't feel comfortable sharing his dreams. He's withdrawn, hasn't been participating like he used to. I'm afraid this might be another failed attempt at engaging him." Her words pierced through my newfound confidence. What if my efforts were falling short? The possibility sent a shiver down my spine. I recognized in her a mirror of my own fears, the anguish of trying and failing. "Do you think he feels the pressure to succeed?" I found myself probing deeper, delving not only into her concerns but into my own. She nodded, her composure wavering. "He feels music and art are for other kids. He thinks he can't create like them." An idea flickered in my mind. What if we take things slower? Maybe encourage him to express in a way that doesn't feel like pressure? Something low stakes, just fun. "Slow," she repeated. "He could use that." As we traded ideas, I sensed a shift from anxiety to a burgeoning hope. This parental dialogue, layered with vulnerability and concern, was not unlike the themes we'd been emphasizing in the workshop. I was pushed to confront the very essence of connection, facilitating a space where both children and adults could dare to dream, even amidst their fears. That I exchanged pleasantries with her before she left, reassured but conflicted. How often had I disregarded my own need for support? How many times had I turned inward in moments of doubt instead of reaching out? The revelation washed over me. I wasn't isolated in my struggles. Each person carries hidden insecurities, with vast landscapes of potential waiting to be unearthed. When I returned to the room, Jacob was animatedly discussing art techniques with the kids, clearly in his element. A spark ignited within me. Perhaps it was time I fostered those connections with the children more explicitly. This wasn't about guiding them to success. It was about creating avenues for discovery, inseparable from the value of authentic expression. After gathering the kids around, I executed a plan born of collaboration rather than instruction. "Let us create a piece reflecting who you are when you're not surrounded by expectations," I suggested, my voice resonating with sincerity. A mixture of surprise and enthusiasm echoed in the chatter around me. As they began to create, a wave of excitement enveloped the room. With each stroke of color, every mark made with confidence, I saw the walls of hesitation crumble. The kids lost themselves in their artistic flow, free to express without judgment. And there, among them, I felt the heaviness in my heart lighten. But as the workshop reached its animated peak, another realization came to me. I had navigated uncharted emotional territory not for their success alone, but also for my own growth. The journey to authenticity, I realized, was often rife with introspection and transformation, the very traits I had been trying to impart to them. I was weaving my own dreams into their process, yet, the parent's visit lingered in the back of my mind, reminding me of the ripple effect such a conversation could create. Moving forward would also require doing the hard work of sharing my own vulnerabilities as a parent with my son, not just as a workshop leader. Just as I tasked them with expressing their deepest aspirations, I had to confront my own fears head-on. The day wore to a close, and with newfound energy pulsing through the room, I overheard Jacob explain to a young girl how every mistake could lead to an interesting surprise in their art. The fragility of that moment struck me. I realized that this wasn't merely about art, it was about life's canvas, messy, imperfect, but brilliantly our own, but just when I thought I was digesting the day's revelations, a voice chimed from behind. "Excuse me, can I talk to you, too?" A familiar face loomed, a long-lost friend from my past, bringing with them not just old memories, but a confrontation I wasn't prepared for. And at that moment, I felt the weight of everything I had begun to unravel. The challenge looming ahead felt momentous. I wasn't just facing my growth but a benchmark that would affect how I perceived every aspect of my journey. Would I continue to transform, or would I retreat into the shadows again? The room seemed to shrink around me as I turned to face my old friend, their presence a jarring reminder of unfinished business lodged deep in my past. "You?" I managed to utter, each word laced with confusion and a wary nostalgia. My heart raced, not from the excitement of reunion, but from a looming confrontation that felt utterly inevitable. "Yeah, it's been a while," they said, the hint of uncertainty in their voice puncturing the air. A deluge of emotions surged within me: betrayal, nostalgia, resentment, and the space between us felt charged, pregnant with unspoken words I had long buried. As we exchanged pleasantries, I couldn't help but think of the talk with the parent before. Here I was, standing at a crossroads, faced with an opportunity to address shadows of the past, just as I had encouraged the children to express themselves. Wasn't this what I had taught? To confront fears instead of running away? But my immediate instinct was to flee, to retreat back into the role of the confident facilitator, the one who had it all figured out. "Can we talk privately?" they asked, motioning toward a quieter corner of the room. My pulse quickened. Was I ready for this? Still, that familiar spark of determination ignited within me. This was an opportunity to unearth buried truths, not just for my old friend, but for myself. As we stepped aside, I felt the weight of their gaze, a mirror reflecting my own struggles. "I've been thinking a lot about our past," they began, hesitating momentarily like someone searching for the right words. "I wanted to apologize for how things ended. It was never easy." A flurry of memories passed through my mind, dark and sharp. I had spent so long pushing them down, figuring I could escape the hangover of regret. Was it really necessary to reach out now? I questioned, the words flowing more like an accusation than inquiry. "After all this time?" "I know it's unexpected," they replied, the sincerity in their voice undeniable. "But I think we left things unresolved. It still weighs on me." And I figured, we both could use a bit of closure. Closing my eyes for a moment, I took a deep breath, feeling the familiar dread of vulnerability creep in. Sharing my dreams with the children was one thing, but did I have the courage to address my own? Here was an invitation to open up, but it felt as daunting as standing before the kids, and perhaps that was the very challenge I had been neglecting for far too long. "It's scary," I confessed, my voice trembling slightly. "To admit that our choices led us here, to this moment." A flicker of understanding crossed their face, and I felt an odd sense of solidarity. No longer just the mentor, too, was a pupil learning to navigate the complexities of relationships and emotions. All around, the chatter of children engrossed in art echoed, illuminating the essence of honest expression. "What do you think it looks like to move forward?" they asked, their willingness to listen drawing out a sliver of trust. For the first time that evening, the walls around my heart began to soften. "I think it starts with honesty," I replied, cautiously stepping deeper into this vulnerable territory. "It's about facing not just the past, but the commitment to face each other without pretense." The admission lingered between us, alive and quivering, as if it could tip the balance of our future conversations. At that moment, however, just as I began to feel a fragile connection rekindling, the door swung open. Jacob entered, his face illuminated with unknowing excitement. "You won't believe what I just heard." I turned, my heart sinking, eager to shield my past, but also drawn by the potential of new beginnings. Suddenly, it all felt so precarious. The boundary between growth and regression blurred under the weight of unasked questions and the promise of emotional transparency. But as Jacob continued detailing his discovery, the question remained: how far would I be willing to go to embrace both my past and my future, and would I transform the ghosts of regret into the catalysts for self-discovery? And just when I thought clarity was within reach, I sensed another shift in the air, a tumultuous change approaching like a storm. What lay ahead was more than a conversation, it was an inkling of something life-altering. What had Jacob uncovered that would force me back to the very heart of my emotional labyrinth? The clock ticked as I stood facing the tether of my past, the air thick with the weight of unuttered emotions. The raucous laughter of children painting vivid dreams faded into a distant hum, and all I could hear was Jacob's animated voice merging with my internal dialogue, pulling me through the complexities of regrets and hopes. "Dad, I just found out that a lot of the kids love the idea of our workshop. It's turning into something bigger." The excitement in his tone was palpable, and although I noticed he hadn't truly recognized the tension flaring between me and our old friend, my heart swelled with pride for his courage. I took a moment to breathe and anchored myself amidst this perfect storm. "That's wonderful, Jacob." My voice was steady, but doubt fluttered at the corners of my resolve. Could my personal evolution stride alongside this endeavor? "Are you okay? You've been kinda quiet." Jacob's inquisitive gaze pierced through my fog of doubts, pulling back the layers I had carefully wrapped around my vulnerability. Shadows flickered across my mind. "I'm just processing some things," I admitted, instinctively searching for the correct balance between truth and protection. How much did I want him to see or know about my internal battles? "It's okay to talk about feelings, you know." His assurance mirrored the principles I had built the workshop upon, a commitment to authenticity and exploration. Feeling the warmth in his words wrapped around me, I realized that this was a pivotal moment not only for my son but for me as well. "Actually," I started, a newfound courage igniting with each word, "there's something heavy on my heart that I've been meaning to address. It's about embracing the thorns of our past, and transforming them into new opportunities." The moment stretched as Jacob's brow furrowed in earnestness, prompting me to continue. I felt the two worlds, my past and present, colliding for a rebirth of sorts. This workshop is not just about creativity. It's about dismantling fears and building connections, not just for you and the kids, but for me too. With those words, I watched the realization dawn on Jacob's face. It was as if a door had swung wide open. "So, you're saying it's about you stepping up too?" "Exactly. I've been so focused on the legacy of my garage, frozen by my fear of failure, that I forgot it's time to evolve and face my own dreams. To be a mentor means being vulnerable and fearless at the same time." A burst of energy flooded the room. The excitement was palpable as children swarmed our makeshift creative hub, echoing their joy, a chorus that resonated with the strength of shared aspirations. With this newfound commitment swirling inside me, I swung into action, energized like never before. "Let us do it. Let us introduce a part of this workshop focused on sharing every project, even if it's messy. We can have a feedback session, each one giving constructive impressions on the creative processes." Jacob's face broke into a wide grin, his blue eyes sparkling. "That's brilliant. People need to understand that it's okay to fail, even the greatest inventors did." As we bounced ideas back and forth, each one igniting the fire within me further, I noticed the tension dissipating with every heartbeat. I felt like a sculptor chiseling away at a block of stone, unveiling a hidden masterpiece through collective vulnerability and strength. Our collaboration transitioned into a dance of ideas, with renewed life coursing through each conversation as we prepared this space for the children. The buzzing anticipation enveloped us, a clear promise of evolving experiences that lay ahead, ones that would allow both Jacob and I to shed the confines of expectations and explore past horizons anew. The night before the workshop commenced, I breathed deeply, feeling both excitement and trepidation. I had no idea how this would all play out or whether Jacob would thrive in all this, but the leap I was about to take felt like the culmination of everything I had strived for. As morning dawned, each child's face came into focus, eager, curious, ready to engage in a world where creativity and failures were merely stepping stones on a far grander journey. Standing among them, Jacob shot me a big smile, contagiously excited. "This is going to be amazing." I nodded, my chest swelling with pride. It was more than a mere workshop. It was an odyssey of self-discovery, intertwining dreams, hopes, and growth. Then, right before the session began, there came the inevitable moment of uncertain stillness. Just before we launched into the chaos of colors and sounds, I turned to the children, my heart exposed yet resolute. "Today, we are not just creating, we are daring to dream without limits. Every mistake leads to unforeseen creativity. I know sometimes we feel the pressure to succeed. It's essential to let go of that. In this space, let us navigate this mess we call life, together, I proclaimed, seeing confidence blossom within their eager expressions, and in that moment, I realized, I was no longer just a father or a man tied to his garage. I had become a facilitator of dreams, a lighthouse guiding not just Jacob but all these children through the tempest of self-doubt and unforgiving pasts. The hour unwound in a whirlwind of laughter, creation, and even tears, a beautiful testament to the human spirit's resilience. Each art piece constructed, each shared story brought us closer, each feedback exchanged molded not just the children but transformed my own perception of growth. The culmination of my personal journey entwined with these vibrant young souls blossoming with creativity showed me the true essence of legacy, not merely the bricks of a building but the bridge forged through shared hope. And that is when I finally understood, letting go of the past doesn't strip away who I am, it cements my identity as a father, as a mentor, and as a man willing to step boldly into the evolving journey of life, one filled with creativity and untold potential. Now that you've experienced the power of personal transformation, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Remember to leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. I want to hear from you. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's spread the message of overcoming challenges together.